Hello students, on 5th of October, the OPEC nations, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, and 10 other nations met in Vienna. And what did they do? They decided to cut the production of crude oil by 2 million barrel per day. 2 million means 20 lakh and 1 barrel is 159 liters. What will be the impact of this announcement on the oil prices? Number one, we are specially interested to know what will be the impact of this on the prices of Indian retail, on the Indian fuels retail. We will examine this in this short video. So first thing first, what is meant by OPEC? OPEC, or Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, was formed in 1960 in Iraq. It comprises as at today 13 nations who all together, put together, they produce around 29 or 30 million barrel of crude every day. 30 to be precise. In 2021 the figure is 28.63, but there was some downfall due to the COVID, so you can say around 30 million barrels per day are produced by these 13 countries: Algeria, Angola, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Libya, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, the big daddy Saudi Arabia. It's among the largest. Saudi Arabia and Russia is not a part of the OPEC. Saudi Arabia produces around 9 million barrels a day. UAE, which produces 2.7 million barrels, and Venezuela, which is producing 0.6 million barrel per day. Just to put things in perspective, the crude oil consumption, the oil consumption of the world is around 100 million barrels per day. So OPEC represents around 28, 29, 30% of the supply, the world supply. Just to put things in another perspective, India consumes around 5.15 million barrel per day. China consumes around 14.4 million barrels per day. USA consumes 19.6 million barrel per day. But US is also a very large producer of crude oil today. It produces around 11 or 12 million barrels per day. China doesn't produce much. It produces around 3 million barrel, and India produces very little. It just produces only 14 to 15% of a requirement. So OPEC is a very significant block in the world equation of crude power. Crude power means crude oil power. Okay, so what happened on 5th of October in Vienna? Vienna, by the way, is the headquarter of OPEC nations, so it's not in Saudi Arabia, it's in Vienna, on neutral ground. So these 13 OPEC nations plus 10 other nations, which includes Russia. Russia and US are among the highest producers of crude oil today. Russia produces around 10.1 million barrel per day. It is slightly ahead of Saudi Arabia now. Otherwise, Saudi Arabia used to be the highest. I'm talking of 2021 figures. So these 13 OPEC nations, which they command 30% of this crude oil, and these 10 nations which are not in OPEC but they command around 17 to 18% of crude oil, led by Russia. They met together in Vienna and they have decided to reduce the output of the crude by 2 million barrels. So they together produce around 45 million barrel per day, and then they say they will reduce it by 2 million barrels per day. OPEC Plus represents 45% of world crude. So you see the power of OPEC nation becomes almost 80% more now, with 10 countries joining them and deciding to go for a production cut. So it had an impact. It immediately had an impact once the announcement was made on 5th of October. Actually, the prices of the crude, the benchmark Brent and WTI, had started going up before that, when the announcement for the meat was made. But people had thought that perhaps they will decide on a cut of 500 of half a million barrel per day, maybe 1 million barrel, but 2 million barrel is quite substantive. That is why the prices have started to go up. Now I will examine how the prices have gone up in relation to the Indian crude basket. So why did the OPEC Plus took a decision to cut the production? They said they are doing it in consideration of their own economic interest, because they said there is a impending recession. A recession is looming large, and because of recession the supplies as such will go down, the prices will crash, and then that is why they wanted to limit the production, because if they limit the production, then their price will be maintained, and their country's own income for the year will be protected, because these countries depend largely upon the export of the crude oil to other countries. So they said they are doing it in their own economic interest. So what is the impact on the Indian, what will be the impact of Indian fuel prices? After when the prices had surged beyond $110 a barrel, prices had then come down. Prices had come down on September 30th, the price of Indian crude basket was $89 a barrel. But on 6th of October, that is 2 days before I am making this film, this video film, it has shot up to 93. So around $4 per barrel, it has already shot up, and this is because of the announcement of production cut. So what is first of all, what is the Indian crude basket? Indian crude basket is different from the benchmark Brent or Western Texas Intermediate WTI. It is a mix actually of sour crude and sweet crude. Sour crude is one which has high sulfur, and sweet crude is one which has less sulfur. So it is 75% sour crude, which is Oman and Dubai grade, 75%, and dated Brent grade, which is 25%. So that is what a Indian crude basket is. Indian crude basket had dipped to 85 barrel also on only a few weeks ago. Okay, so if you remember, in June 2022, it had gone up very high. It had become $121 a barrel, Indian crude basket. From $121 a barrel, it had dipped to around $85 a barrel. Then it started to rise again. Okay, India was buying a lot of crude from Russia of late. In fact, India was taking almost 12% of the Russian crude, because it was getting the Russian crude at a hefty discount of around $20 to $30 a barrel. But India had stopped it. Why did India had reduced it? Why did India reduce? Because the crude which was available from the Gulf countries on the international market, that also had gone down substantially. India can still continue to buy from Russia, because Indian crude basket is going up, but India can still buy from Russia. But there are going to be huge logistics issues. Mediterranean Shipping Company and AP Moller Maersk, the two biggest container line companies, they have halted bookings for Russian freight. In fact, Maersk has already warned all the customers that it will have a global impact, which will not only be limited to Russia. So that is the problem. India can continue to buy from Russia, but it is difficult to get ships. However, the Reserve Bank already had taken into consideration that the prices will rise beyond 100. Will the Indian retail fuel prices, the prices of diesel and petrol, go up? I don't think it will go up immediately. Because they were not lowered, the prices were not lowered down once it had crashed from $121 per barrel to $85 per barrel. It had not crashed because Indian companies had made a lot of losses. So government had given this time to Indian companies to recoup some of the losses. So Indian prices will not go down immediately. But if the Indian crude basket goes beyond 105, then there is a possibility that the Indian fuel retail prices will be hiked. So is there any solution? The only solution right now is to me is recession. If recession really hits China, America, Euro region, then the prices will soften, the prices will go down. Otherwise, it looks like that in medium term or in short term, the price of crude will go beyond $100. But it is not necessary the retail prices in India will be increased proportionately. I hope you have understood why the impact of OPEC and OPEC Plus nations to limit the production and how it impacts India.